Academia and war music. A combination that mixes as good as water and oil. Seriously, when asking people about any good academic papers on the subject, they'll tell me none. So why is that? The unfortunate reality of these papers is that while they do give you an idea of what these songs are like, they read more like reactionary opinion pieces rather than a factual source. These papers, by the way, are possible culprits as to why we use the term Turbofolk instead of war music. I'm guessing these authors had conflated the two since they both got big in the same era they were in, and they're also both folk, most of the time. An assumption with no real thought put behind it. No thought? Scratch that. I think these people put way too much thought into these. One infamous example is from where today's subject lies. Music Wars, Blood and Song at the End of Yugoslavia, written by Tomislav Longinović and published in the year 2000. This version of the essay, by the way, is nearly impossible to find online. There is a 2004 version of this essay online that we'll talk about just briefly, but please note that they are slightly different from each other. The origins of Music Wars is from a book called Music and the Racial Imagination, a book published by the University of Chicago. To my dismay, this version of the essay is technically paywalled, which sadly is commonplace for higher education. I refused to drop $50 on this book, so I ended up getting a used copy for about $18. Thankfully, it was in pretty good condition. As for the contents of the book itself, well, to give you an idea of what you're in store for, the essay that appears before this is about the plight of African Americans, rap, and the Illuminati. Yeah, I tried reading this and I got lost. Unfortunately, Music Wars fares no better. Its backbone is a work that talks about the concept of an ethnic Yugoslav and how it sort of relates to the fall of Yugoslavia. On paper, it doesn't sound that bad, but the subject of this paper specifically is war music, especially when it pertains to Serbs and Croats. This has the unfortunate consequence of having more of an emphasis on pseudo-intellectual sludge about race and the psyche of said race, and the lack of context of, well, war. Here, let me show you what I mean. Take a look at this J card. How would you interpret this? You might be thinking that this is commentary on how incompetent and stupid the United Nations Protection Forces are, right? Apparently not. Now, according to this guy, this is commentary on how African American soldiers were present in the protection force, and how, in theory, Croatian officials didn't want them fighting for Croatian independence due to incompatible values. Now, I have looked far and wide for any evidence to support this specific claim, and I came up empty-handed. But wait, it gets worse. He even goes as far as to say that the obscene lyrics demonstrated in the evidence are examples of a Croats' repressed homosexuality? Listen, I think this guy used the worst example to prove his points. Here, let me give you an example of what this alleged Gays in Denial album sounds like. They're just dicking around. Okay, the pun wasn't intended, but I'm sure that they had more fun writing and singing these songs than Tomislav did writing this essay. And just before you think that Tomislav is playing the system for a quick buck, his repertoire of writing indicates that this guy is 100% serious. Now, I could tear into the paper if I wanted to, but it's not the subject of this video. Let's move on to the actual subject of this video. In the essay, Tomislav talks about Serbian war music with the first song referenced being Srbi Supermeni. Fun fact, in the original version, it was referred to as a war rap. In the slightly condensed 2004 reissue titled Altered States, Language and Violence After Yugoslavia, it was changed to genocide rap. I guess war rap wasn't going to get clicks. Aside from conflating Srbi Supermeni with Kamenico Tuge te pokrila, the source where this author got the song from and another Serbian song is from today's subject. Srpske omiljene ratne pesme, a CD of dubious origins. While a name like that isn't entirely out of the ordinary, it's a little too on the nose. This essay describes this as recently released, but the category number is CD 9308. If this essay was written in late 1999 to early 2000, 9308 is a strange number, since it typically means that it's the 8th release in the year 1993. Even companies that have weirder catalog numbers were either not at that number yet, like Renome, or already way past that threshold, like PGP RTS. The author probably noticed the confusing wording, or someone tipped him off on how catalog numbers typically worked over there. So in the 04 reissue, he clarified that it was indeed from 1993. Semantically speaking, that is still very weird since you wouldn't typically use the word recent for an album that was released 6 years prior. Before you do say, well, maybe this was on the back burner for a long time and he forgot to correct the year, he uses a source from 1995, meaning that the quote-unquote new songs he referenced were already at best 2 years old. Semantics aside, even with the 1993 release date, there's still some skepticism to be had. Stating the obvious, this being the 8th CD release indicates that there were 8 more CD releases from this unknown company. To be clear, CDs weren't entirely uncommon, but for war music, they were incredibly rare. For example, Superton, a company known for its war music, had only one known CD release of 1993, that being Milka's Serbia. Even the Swiss label RTVJ had a war song compilation CD, only that was released a year later. As a matter of fact, it's the second and only documented CD of that year. This being the 8th CD that was part 1 of many in the year 1993 is really far-fetched. Considering that a good amount of war songs were made in that year alone, we can only guess that this was a late 93 release. I mean, you'd need enough content for 20 tracks, and I don't think there was enough content at the start of the year to fill that track list. Out of 20, we only know of 2 tracks. Tomislav notes that Srbi Supermeni was a closeout to the album, meaning it was track 20. The other track referenced is the 4th and is what made me second guess the legitimacy of the CD itself. As referenced in the last part of the essay, the song is revealed to be Pera Miloš Stoku preko Save. If you aren't in the know, that song is infamous for its, let's just say, less than politically correct lyrics. Now, not only does this give a perfect example of what the author is looking for, but it also points out another discrepancy: the rights. Now, you see, when it comes to anything that features Superton, it typically is on a Superton product. The only time where I've seen this not happen was from RTVJ, and I've already established that they didn't release a lot of CDs as far as we know. Yugohit, on the other hand, didn't have any compilations they released in terms of war music. As a matter of fact, the only known occasion where a song from Srpske patriotske pesme appeared in a compilation was from a Chetničke pesme uživo CD that was released sometime in the late 2000s. And that was long after Yugo Hit seemingly went bust. So the possibility of a Superton song and a Yugo Hit song on a war compilation CD in 1993, at least a domestically official release, is improbable. There's also no publisher mentioned for this album, and this being the best of the best Serbian war music, there is a surprising lack of reference to the other tracks. I mean, why reference another paper for the other songs from a year prior when this has everything the author needs? I'm so sorry, but to address this point, the only time where I have seen uncredited CD releases, they usually don't have a category number attached to them, and they are most likely bootleg. The citation for the CD is in complete contrast to, UN Pro 4 Big Band? Hopefully I pronounced that right. Where this not only had a label and an album name, but was also used to racially profile Croatians as a whole. I'm sorry. We're digressing. Anyways, if this CD really did exist, Tomislav may have been duped. If this assumption is true, sadly, this would not be the last time this has happened. About 7 or 8 years later, a Belgian paper called Turbofolk and Nationalism in Serbia was published. It mentions a music video for the Bajamali Kninja song, Srpski Dobrovoljac. Upon further digging, it was found that the video was actually just a fan creation, not a missing piece of the Superton Hits compilation tapes. It happened once more in the same paper, as it features a Borislav Lichanin song located in the bibliography. Titled Oda Slobodanu, it praises Slobodan Milošević. After numerous search efforts, the only known source we have found is from a website that has the lyrics, but no song sample to share. This alleged CD is in a similar predicament nearly 2 decades later. So either Tomislav misinterpreted his Swiss war music CD as being from his home country, or he fell for buying someone's personal mixtape. I myself have messaged him in regards to the CD, but it's been nearly a year and no response. I've even heard from someone that their friend even messaged them, and they also got no response. So maybe he's not a talkative guy. It is imperative to note that please do not mass message him. He's a professor, and I'm sure he's got a slew of student emails to sift through. In my personal opinion, I think the CD was fabricated in order to not say that he sourced this from forums that hosted war music. But I don't know. What do you think? That's all I have for this episode. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.